Well, hello folks, I'm LA Little and this is your daily TA wrap, where we take a look at these markets and we do it from a neoclassical perspective, asking ourselves each day what happened and what does it tell us about the coming days. I do the show 4 times a week, Monday through Thursday, live at 9 o'clock Eastern Time here from the base of the Rocky Mountains. Folks, it was a very narrow sideways range today, really not much happening. If you look at the indexes, the worst one, of course, was the Russell. The Russell dropped, was 1136, or actually the close yesterday was 1133, closes 1121. So you knocked off 12 points, a little under 1%. That was the biggest hit. Outside of that, though, there really wasn't much movement. It was pretty much sideways. 1/3% on the composite was the next biggest one. Dow was actually up slightly, so was the S&Ps. And as part of that, the S&Ps actually made a new high. So let me pop over to those, and let's start with the S&Ps and try to make sense of what we do and don't know at this point, because I said yesterday that today would be a critical day. I was surprised with the strength yesterday. I didn't expect that. I did think that we could make a nominal new high. I didn't think it would come yesterday, but it did. And here we are now making a breakout on the S&P, but that's about as sad a breakout as I've ever seen. Goes up, does a reversal, closes on the lows, and you have to wonder if that's going to hold. Top of this is the top of the bar was 1897.28, closes 1897.45. So you get a new all-time closing high over yesterday's high, over the swing point high, no volume. It's going to give you a suspect breakout on the S&P 500. So once again, over the highs, can it hold? Dow says it can. Dow goes up, actually pushes even higher. I believe after hours, Caterpillar came out, and I'm not sure what the news was, but I know it was moving. Let's see what, because Caterpillar is a pretty big weighting. And let's see if I can get a quote on it right quick. And Caterpillar trades to 107.12, it looks like, after hours. Let me see where it closed. Yeah, really just slightly up. So it's actually basically the same. So Caterpillar's going into a swing point high. That's going to be hard to get that one to push higher anyway. Going back to the indexes, so if we go, so that was the 2 strong ones, right? So the Dow trying to push higher, actually pushing higher. The NASDAQ goes over, back under, really no volume here, really doesn't tell us anything other than the fact that it couldn't go higher. The NDX is slightly higher than yesterday today. That high yesterday was 36.13.37. We close at 36.11.13. So essentially you go over, back under, but here it doesn't mean anything. What it really means is that test failed at the 36.13.20 on the swing point high. That to me is probably the most important read off of this chart. It's not a game breaker, but you would have liked to see, you want to see it take it out, right? And so far it hasn't been able to. But then if we go to our trusty friend the Russell, being for so long probably the best read on all these markets, the Russell has been stuck in a downtrend, and every time the Russell attempts to do something about it, it fails. And I mean, we can go all the way back, swing point low broken over here, right? Comes back up, retest, regenerates lower. Swing point broken here, comes back, retest, regenerates lower. Even got a second test on it here. Then what do? We break lower on this bar, come back up, get slightly over it, right? Retest, regenerate. Now we're trying to regenerate lower again. So time and time again, and that also happened when this one broke. This is the one that actually it got back over the top of it, right, and went to the second one. So we've seen it get above them before, slightly above it here, and then regenerate lower. And today it took away about half of that move from last night. So, you know, that bottom was here, top was there. You can see it's about half the move. You don't want to see more than half of it give up. The other problem I saw today is that you were coming back into this bar. You really wanted to see that hold. That top was that hammer reversal top was 1123, and we closed underneath 1121. So Russell, same story that we've had for a long time. Pressured, looks like it wants to try to regenerate lower, and until the Russell quits falling every time it tries to lift, these markets are going to have a hard time going anywhere on the upside. And that continues to look like the same story we've seen before. And with that pathetic breakout on the S&P 500 today, it really makes you think that way. So I don't say this is definitive, but it certainly doesn't endorse, a definite push higher. And that was what the question was last night. And so far, the answer to that question is, well, not so fast. I was just starting to look at the sectors. I didn't have enough time to prep here, so we'll look at them together. So the IOIT had the breakout, really had no volume, so it was suspect, as denoted by the red arrow. Those typically come back within 6 bars, but that one continues on, gets a continuation bid on the Russell. If we look at the semiconductor SMHs, they had wanted to test this breakdown bar, and they couldn't get over it. Matter of fact, they tested and failed. So that's a failure. It tests the bar again and it fails. If we look at the XLB, now the XLB had pushed higher, and excuse me, folks. That push tried to continue today and actually did continue, but just like the S&P, that wasn't a very good continuation bar. So it did push higher, did get a continuation, but really not much to it. So we'll have to see if that's going to come back in and do its retest regen. Looks like that high is 48.34, and it actually did it today. It did a partial retest regen today. Now that bar is huge, so a retest regen could take you all the way to the bottom. So far it's holding though. Well, let's look at the rest of these. So having a hard time extending there. XLE, the XLE, this has been one of the stronger ones, and we did see another push up in oil today, which also is a little bit surprising, but it has turned back to the north. Boy, no volume here as we come back up to the breakdown bar. So the key test here will be this 95.09 area, and I would think that if we get any kind of attempted follow through tomorrow, this would be the one that tries to push up there and test. And given the way it's coming back here, I don't think that's going to get over it. So 95.09, XLE doesn't look like it's going to contribute much. Remember, this had a 2-bar reversal on the weekly. If I pull the weekly over, you had a 2-bar reversal up here last week, and you would expect that to go sideways to down. XLF, okay, so it tests the high, 281 does 234, so less volume over the high, fails. So that's a test failure of the highs. Now it had, if you remember here, gotten over the breakdown bar. So right now it's over the breakdown bar, which is a good one. You know, that's a good sign. And there's a little ABCD structure here. You can see the low here, 21.59. That's about 50 points. And that makes it about 22.30. And that's where it went. Almost, just not quite. So 22.30 would actually get over that high if this ABCD structure were to play out. And it didn't quite get there. It'd be about 22.28, I think, if you do the math. So just slightly less. We may see it try to test again tomorrow as a result. But that's struggling. It had a slightly heavier volume today. I wouldn't be surprised to see it try to test again tomorrow. So XLF may test again. XLI, this also had been a nice strong move. This also gets a continuation, but it's having a hard time extending as well. A little bit surprisingly, because I thought that it would be able to do so. XLK, so that's a doji at the highs. Also an XLK test the highs, 7.7. Boy, there's just no volume as they're testing these things, is it? 36.93, got to 36.94. That's a test failure also. So so XLF test fails at the highs, and now the XLK test fails at the highs. Let's see what XLP did. That one's still hanging. That one still looks fine. Money still likes it. Now the XLU had been a safety haven, but was getting sold off. So if this finally gets a little reversal, it's going to try to bounce back up. So that will help a little bit. The XLV, that's not a very large weighting though, so it doesn't help that much. Okay, XLV testing the highs, trying to break higher. All right, so the high is 58.51, and we close under it. So that also is a test failure of the highs. So that's 3 of them that test fell at the highs. And the last one is the XLY. This one was just trying to get back to the breakdown bar. So the first 3 that got over the breakdown bar, they test fell at the highs. Now here, this one actually gets to the breakdown bar and fails again and fails on the highs. That's like a double failure. So the 4 weakest ones, or actually the 4 struggling ones, XLK certainly got stronger, but it just test failed at the highs. And let me go back to XLK, because that one also was trying to test that downdraft, that high downdraft bar. That top was 36.87 and failed it too. Okay, so we have a double failure here as well. So once it got over this one, right, it goes for the next one. And it gets over it, back under it, and fails, and at the same time gets over back under the high itself and fails. So it's like a double failure on the technology stocks. And that also looks like a completion of an ABCD structure. So it doesn't look to me like technology is going to drive this thing higher. Right? There's your ABCD structure. You've got about this much, and you can kind of do it up there. It's about the same. So that's pretty much done. So this to me looks like it is going to come back in some. That's the XLK. XLF could actually bounce a little bit more. XLV looks like it's going to struggle to get up there, and XLY looks like a failure outright. So you have almost what you've had before, and that is that more mixed signals. Mixed signals in the sectors, certainly not saying, hey, we're going to go higher. If I look at the ox markets, there you also have mixed signals. You have the TLT bouncing. Now I don't think this is going to get back up to the highs yet, but it could because it's been strong. And so if it were, it would actually have the structure to do it, in that it has the ABCD structure, right, to get back over the highs. And that push, if it happens, is going to take it right into the weekly, because we've talked about the weekly before, if I just pop the weekly up, there's a bar up there at 113 that it's trying to get to 114. And so if this daily pushes up there, it'll get it almost to that final, I think that's going to be the final resting of this particular move. So TLT trying to bounce, that also is a mixed signal in that it's suggesting that the markets are going to try to go the opposite direction, which has been the case. Dollar pushes higher. So the dollar, and this is all about FXE getting a knife stuck in it. Draghi made a promise. They're gonna ease. And then today there was an article about the Bundesbank, which is probably the most radical of the banks in terms of monetary easing, saying that they could do like the LTRO again, that they could do negative interest rates, they could do negative rates to the banks to force them to lend, they could do, and so the Bundesbank came out and basically endorsed what Draghi wants to do in June. So if anything, it looks to me like that is going to happen. And as a result of that, if you go over and take a look at the German market, the GDAX, these guys break out, volume expands, they're over the highs. 753, it does 968, does 872. So you got a confirmed breakout now over 2 swing points, right? And just had another swing point broken here. And I believe, let me get to my other screen so I can pop up all the charts. I believe that's going to be a breakout on the weekly if it sticks. So if I pull the weekly up and over, yeah, it's going to be the same thing. That weekly high is the 95.37, and that's what it's breaking right now. So you're going to have a weekly breakout. That one is going to be suspect, but on the dailies they're going to be confirmed. So Germany, nice move going here, and it looks like it's going to try to continue a bit more. Probably up into that area. That's the ABCD structure. And if you look at the rest of them, they're all doing the same thing. The FTSE going for the highs, although the FTSE doesn't have the volume. FTSE's going for the highs and gets over it. It's going to be a suspect breakout tomorrow. It's already broken, so it will come out as a suspect breakout. And then the CAC itself is the one struggling the most, and to me they are the weakest. And but they're breaking out as well. So Europe, monetary easing, and I was telling members this earlier today. In 2011, and I'll just use I'll go back to the GSPC. In 2011, December, if I remember right, I'm pretty sure it was December. And I'm going to pull up the monthly chart. Yeah, right in June. No, it was 2010. Yeah. I'm trying to remember where it was. Yeah, it was 2011. In 2011, yeah, I believe it was right here. In 2011, it was coming up at the end of the year, right, in this time frame. It was coming up, and this was November. And at the beginning of November, beginning of December, it was testing those highs. Didn't look like it was going to have the volume to break them out. Had just made a big dip, that summer. And Europe was on the brink. And looked as if Europe was really going to cause some major issues. And then they came out with the LTRO, which is their form of QE, and that market just took off. And that took our market with it. And I remember that distinctly because I was pretty convinced that we were fixing to get a melt coming into the new year. And instead, we got a melt up. And so my point being that, there's nothing special about us trying to break out here other than the fact that, we've already broken a long way and all that business. But folks, when these central banks ease, it's very hard to keep the markets from going up. And you see it in the European markets. If that easing comes about, and if it's anything to it in terms of size, it's going to affect markets all around the world. That was true in Japan. That's going to be true in Europe. And then if you add in China, and I'll pop up China, China had a big spike up on easing expectations, and it held yesterday even on some bad economic numbers. And if you look at the Hong Kong market, it also, even though it looks even uglier, it also held those highs. Now, I don't know if they're going to be able to push straight up, but you've got two of the five largest central banks in terms of power trying to push more money into the system. That's going to make it very difficult for the system to break down. It's just hard to break down when they're pushing money into the system, because that money goes somewhere and it goes into speculation. That's why these markets are where they are. So even though, this looks suspect in that it doesn't look like it can continue, don't discount what these guys can do, because they can definitely push things higher. All right, let me see if there's some questions from you folks, and I'll try to answer them. If you've got questions you want to ask me, you can text me 303-912-9110 or email me support. Don't know where that came from. How about this? support@tatoday.com. That's where you can reach me. So either one of those mechanisms, I'll try to answer your questions. Of course, you can also type in, as Fede has over here, hello LA, hello Federico. Should I add to my position CLMS tomorrow? Well, let's see. And also, what do you think about TTM, which I think is Tata Motors? Oh yeah, this is the one we talked about, right? We were talking about that you've got the triple break and all that business. So it tests that low, doesn't have the volume, flips around. Okay, so Fede, it's testing into this high, just barely got over it. And I'm guessing resistance was there prior to it getting over it. Yeah, that's not a bad setup. It's just, I don't know what time frame you're playing this on, but I mean, you got three things in effect here. You have these two bars. One of them's a wide price spread bar. That's this one, the low. So the high of the low and the bar next to it, both of them have about the same volume. You go up with less volume. Now you're coming back to test it. So what you want to do is you want to let it come in there and hit them, and then see it fail to go lower. If it fails to go lower, that's telling you the sellers don't want to sell at lower prices, and that's coming back into, you don't want to see the volume stay down here and that price get in there and fail and flip around. And if so, then it's going to have a better chance to work its way up to the next level here. So yeah, it's probably not a bad spot. Got a bunch of highs up here if you ever get up there. I assume you're just you're still looking at this bar, because eventually it's going to try to get back all the way up to there, which is a nice trade. So you got a big range here to there, and you're still in the lower part of it. And if it tests here and won't fail, yeah, that's a good spot. And then let's look at the other one. The other one is TTM, which I think is Tata Motors, which is, probably riding the coattails of India, and actually came back today. I would be hesitant here. I mean, I see what you're looking at in that, you came back into this high and you held, but India was up strong again today, and I wouldn't be excited about a stock that couldn't go up with it. Now, maybe there was stock-specific news, maybe they earnings or something today. I don't know what it was. I'd probably want to look over there first. Let me quickly see what happened today with it. Because, unless it was earnings or something. And I see some news on it. Let me see what it was. Yeah, nothing really. So I don't know what the news was driving it back today, but I probably would wait on this one. And I say that for 2 or 3 reasons, but you got big bars here where they go up, make a high, and they reverse and close on the low. Then you see volume come out of it to set this low. Right now you go back up, and you did get decent volume expansion here, but now you island reverse and come back down again to test. I would at least hold off and see if it wants to test the bottom of this zone, which is where your support is, and that's where I think about it. Okay? All right, I'm about out of time here, so what did we learn today? What did we, what did the markets tell us? They told us that it's not an enthusiastic rush. We had some economic news today that was not so good. We had, of course, Europe telling us that they're going to ease in the stocks over there rallying. Those stocks look like they're going to push farther. If they do, that's going to continue to buoy our market and keep our market from falling. I don't know that we're going to get a robust move, but you have to think that there's some stops up here somewhere. So if I go back to the S&P, they certainly weren't here, and that's because they had a chance to probably readjust them today, and we had no real volume today. But if something comes into this market and spikes it, you're going to see the shorts have to cover, and you're going to see the money have to come back in again, even though it's May and nobody wants to buy in May, right? Because there's that May, sell in May, go away. There's all the stuff about May to September being so bad. But if this market starts to work higher, people are going to have to put their money back in. So at this point, I wouldn't discount it and say it's going to fail. I'd also say, give it another day. Let's see what happens. I'd like to see the Russell flip around, and I'd like to see those sectors actually start taking out something instead of failing. Those are the biggest negatives that I see in the market right now. That's it. Thanks for joining me. Take care of yourself. Till next time, I'm LA. This is, and it was, your daily TA wrap. Have yourself a great night. Until next time, take care.